Hi, everybody. Welcome to Decoded. My name is Andrew Gibbs. I'm the founder of Dieline, and I'm so thankful to have you here today. With Decoded, our goal is for you to take away fresh inspiration and learn some behind-the-scenes tips and tricks to pitching, concepting, developing, and designing Dieline-worthy brands. Today, we will be decoding the design process behind the innovative Allbirds Dasher packaging, and I could not be more excited to introduce our next guest, my friend, Beau Oyler. Beau is a design entrepreneur and founder of Enlisted Design, where he works at the intersection of business, data, and design to create product experiences for some of the world's most sought-after brands. His work can be found today at MoMA, Apple Store, Whole Foods, Target, Best Buy, and Amazon. For Beau and Enlisted, great design is a collaborative process that encompasses branding, packaging design, industrial design, and UX. It's a cohesive whole. And when it all comes together in the right way, brands can create that special connection that goes beyond affinity, advocacy, and loyalty to become part of a person's identity. Recently, Enlisted joined Pattern.com to create an industry-first approach that uses the soul of design and the science of data analytics to create the right brand at the right time for the right consumer. Please welcome Beau.
Yeah, Andrew, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a great podcast, and just thrilled that you're giving designers the opportunity to tell their story and kind of how they got there. And I'm really excited to do that with Allbirds today. So quick intro, I'm Beau Oyler, and I'm the founder of Enlisted Design. We're a design agency based in Oakland, California, and Salt Lake City, Utah. We're about 50 people at the studio between both offices. And we get to work with some of the best brands in the world, and big brands like Amazon and Ford, and small brands like Pax and Hims and Mr. Beast. And these are just really fun, dynamic brands that are looking to create next level shit. And that's what we do. And so we're always on the hunt for brands that are ready to not just take the next step for them as a brand, but to take the next step of leadership in their category. And Allbirds is certainly one of those brands. And so I thought that it would be fun to kind of decode what we've done with them so far. A little bit of history. So I co-founded Enlisted Design in 2008 in Oakland, and began building the studio there. Oakland is just this town, this city that's on the rise. And there were all these other design agencies in San Francisco, wanted to separate ourselves and be really the first design agency that does what we do in Oakland. And now we're the biggest there, and kind of at the epicenter of Uptown and the design community. And we had these ideas as an agency, like, sure, we're servicing all of our clients, which is great. But at what point are we going to do this for ourselves? Like, at what point are we going to launch our own brand and put our money where our mouth is? And so in 2012, we launched a brand called Urbio, and we did the whole Kickstarter thing, like year one Kickstarter. And Kickstarter, after we launched it, did this whole blog post of like, if you want to do a successful Kickstarter, here's how you do it. And they featured Urbio. And then we got the craziest call, and this is what happened. So it was a super exciting experience for us to be on Shark Tank and to pitch to these investors, and it was great. And Urbio blew up. We grew it. We hired a CEO. We spun it off of Enlisted, and ultimately got into pretty much every retailer we wanted to be, from the Museum of Modern Art to Container Store to Target and so on. Eventually, we sold Urbio so that we could focus on Enlisted and doing what we did once again for our clients. And really from that point on, once we had done it ourselves, things changed at Enlisted, and we had experience not just in theory of launching brands, but in practice. And so we kind of went into this hyper growth phase where we went from the Oakland studio, we were probably 20, 30 people at the time, opened the Salt Lake studio a couple of years ago because there's this whole like Silicon Slopes thing happening in Utah, and we wanted to be the first kind of bigger design agency to come into Utah and be able to work with these new companies that were growing up. And it's been an absolute blast to be in Salt Lake doing this. And so now we're like Oakland, Salt Lake, the 50 of us are kind of split between both studios. And then we met Pattern.com. And they let's see. So I sold Enlisted Design to Pattern last August, and we joined the Pattern family of companies, of brands. And the reason that we did it is I actually wasn't looking to be acquired at all. And I had turned down Google and a couple other agencies, and I just wasn't interested in acquisition until this happened. Because as an agency, we love creating brands and products for our clients, but then this experience of Urbio, of creating it for myself, was so compelling and so interesting. When I learned about what Pattern was, which is an e-commerce platform, they're actually the third largest reseller worldwide on Amazon. And so they have this data of the brands and of the search and the what consumers are searching for that is so deep. We can use that in our design process to understand our consumers in a much deeper way. And then the idea is, great, so if we can create brands and Pattern can create brands, at what point do we put that together and start creating our own brands? So that's the vision for it. It's been awesome. We still run autonomously as a design agency, but eventually we'll start collaborating. So, all right, so that gets me to kind of the premise of the conversation today, and that is that good design is good for the world. And when I think of Allbirds in the work that I'm going to show you today, but as we approach design programs, design opportunities, we're thinking really big picture. Like, how does this fit in the world? How does it fit in someone's life? How does it bring joy or solve issues that they're facing? And so it's not just a matter of, oh, what's the OBX? What's the out-of-box experience? Or what is the, what are the materials used? Like, it's a bigger picture of how the consumer interacts with it, how the business interacts with it, how does the world and landfill interact with it? And that's what's so exciting about Allbirds, because they are a brand that champions sustainability. Okay, they always have been, and I love that about them. And so when they reached out to us, the brief was actually really, really simple. It was Enlisted, help us develop the most sustainable packaging on the market, something to that effect. And we're like, okay, yes, I think I was wearing my Allbirds at the time. I'm like, yeah, all right, sounds good. And so we jumped into this program, really just seeking an opportunity to kind of redefine what can be done in footwear, both from a usability standpoint and a sustainability standpoint. And so looking at the industrial design team came in, and I think we've got 10, 12 industrial designers at this point at Enlisted. And they began designing and creating form factors that could fit, big shoes, little shoes, that could be a very clean, modern shape. And then started looking at materials that we could use that would tie into the materials of the shoe itself. And so the Dasher is this great running shoe by Allbirds. If you haven't tried them, you got to pick some up. They're fantastic. And they use kind of these three core materials. It's wood, it's tree bark, and it's bagasse or sugarcane. And so as we were in our material exploration phase, we really leaned into this idea of bagasse and what we could do with it. Because as much as we love using this sustainable and compostable material, everything we had seen was very engineered. And of course, there were aspects of the design that needed to be engineered, but we needed it to really be designed and to be able to create one form that could fit everything from a size 5 to a size 15 in this one box, and yet be clean and modern and refreshing to the Allbirds consumer. And really, that's what they expect. And so as we leaned into our research, of bagasse, what we found was that not only is the sugarcane valuable as a resource, but there's all of this kind of byproduct of the sugarcane that's created that nobody's really doing anything with. And so we take this byproduct, work with a company who is essentially bathing this byproduct, extracting what's called the liquors, or the black liquor, which is the stickiness, and create a bagasse molded container that would be 100% compostable. And then could we do it in a modern form factor that's not overly engineered? And then could we do it with Allbirds brand colors? And that's where things just got really complex. So let me just take a step back really quick, and I'm going to show you a couple of videos about Bagasse so we can better understand what it is. The sheets are created, then we can start making molds. Going through multiple steps of molding to get it kind of Bagasse, and that allowed us to work with and build the Allbirds brand at this specific touch point. Okay, so now we have our material. Now we're into the design phase, the prototyping phase, the engineering phase, and all of the kind of bits and pieces that are going into it, making sure that we can have a fully recyclable tissue, a fully recyclable belly band that wraps around it, fully recyclable insert that educates to the material. And in fact, I've got some of those here, right? So the insert that educates on the material itself. We've got the tissue that wraps around the shoes rather than a plastic poly bag. We've got some of the prototypes that you can see. Some of the prototypes that you can see here, like really rough prototypes, right? But understanding, okay, how do we get a 5 and a 15 to fit together? And then there's this little insert here that, you know, a size 15, the shoes go all the way up, whereas a size 5 or something smaller kind of comes back down here. And so we created this little card that can go in there out of recycled material that could keep the shoes in place. They're not just flopping around. And ultimately, going through the tooling phase and through the engineering phase, we worked with them to, you know, create the packaging itself. And you can see that it's large, and it is a one pack SKU that can fit all sizes of their shoes. So we've got a belly band that, let's see, that comes off here. And once the belly band's off, then you've got the molded pulp bucket. Inside of that is this little insert that educates on the material. You pull the insert out, and you've got your shoes wrapped inside of our black recyclable tissue. So that's kind of the end result, which is really, you know, exciting, right? Because you go from like these like super rough prototypes of just foam core and tape and like trying to figure out the mechanics of the out-of-box experience and fitting the shoes, you know, especially from this like size 5 to 15. You go through the materials of recycled black tissue paper, of the belly band itself, of the print materials, and making sure that everything's soy-based. And then into the engineering. And there was a lot of pushback, right? It's not like it was just a matter of a matter of like, okay, here's the design, go tool it. When you're working with a design that is like, or a container that is, you know, in totality like 8-9 inches tall, that's a very large piece to pull off of the mold. And so worked hand in hand with the engineering team at Voyon to be able to get that extracted right, and to not have all of the ribbing that the engineers said that we needed, and they didn't, right? And we face that as packaging designers all the time, where you've got this designed intent that then gets kind of bastardized as it goes into manufacturing and DFM. And I'm not saying that as designers we need to be hard asses. I'm saying that we need to collaborate with the engineers to give where we need to, but also to have the relationship with them so that they understand the vision and understand where it doesn't need to be overly engineered. And that's one of the beauties of the Dasher packaging, is that we kind of got everything that we needed to get out of it without being overly engineered, and really for the intent, the design intent and the out-of-box experience to shine so that the consumers would love it. And they did. And this got sent out. Actually, one of my favorite posts was Kerry Washington received her Dashers and posted to Instagram in her live stories and did a whole unboxing of her Dashers, and all her packaging was just right there, and she loved it and she commented on it. And so it's always fun to see those types of kind of validations. So as we think about this process, we start with this byproduct, this bagasse, pulp, this byproduct that's just going to waste. We manufacture it in such a way that it creates a pulp that we can then create a form factor for our structural design. And then that lives for a bit while it performs its function, and then it goes, into wherever it needs to go to be composted, right? And that's the beauty, is that it can actually be composted. And it's the only packaging. It's the only packaging in footwear that is fully compostable pack. And I'm super proud of Allbirds, super proud of Voyon, super proud of the Enlisted team to not only design this with resources that we already had and knew, but to design it to be first, right? To be first to market with this. And to me, that's really, really exciting. So, asking the question of ourselves, like, how do we bake sustainability into design process so that we are the advocates? I think partly it's the clients that we work with and our partners looking for that, and not just being open to it, but actually looking for that, that expert experience. And that's where we've gotten to the point. And when you come work with Enlisted, especially on a packaging project, the brands expect that we are going to bring sustainable options to the table, and suspect that we're going to understand and learn their business to such a degree that we can do it in such a way that's not going to cost them money, and it may even have a cost savings. So let me walk you through a couple examples of that. Stance is an apparel brand out of Orange County, California. They make socks. They make the coolest socks you've ever seen. And we love Stance. Like, this is actually one of those clients like Allbirds where when they called, I'm just like, actually, yeah, I'm wearing your socks right now. Let's talk. This is cool. But they weren't leaders in sustainability, and they really needed to be in their category. And so we worked with Stance to rethink and redesign their labels and their hooks, and get to a place where we could use significantly less plastic. I mean, and I'm talking like not just, so there's the recycled plastic, right? But like actually less plastic, where our industrial design team created a unique hanger that is actually, it's made out of 100% recycled plastic, but is open in the center, which creates forgiveness in retail so that the hangers don't break, but also just uses less plastic. So when you think about, okay, well, let's use recycled plastic, but let's just use less of it. Let's use recycled paper, but let's use less of it. So we use like 50% less paper. And then we switched everything over to recycled paper and soy-based inks. And what that did for us was put Stance in a position where they are leaders in sustainability and kind of the surf, fashion world. And then go into kind of as table stakes, their packaging is now fully recyclable and sustainable. But then it allowed the design team to come in and say, okay, now let's think about the consumer experience. Now let's think about merchandising. Now let's think about creating hierarchy and SKU differentiation within your portfolio. Because when we started working with Stance, they had like 5,000 SKUs. And so working with the team, we strategized this kind of good, better, best platform of the product line, and then design to that. So you've got a black, a silver, and a gold, so that as a consumer, when you're walking into a Stance store, into any skate shop worldwide, are you going to spend 10, 20, 30 bucks on a sock? Well, now these labels are going to teach you exactly how to shop for the socks that you're looking for. And then we extended that throughout the entire apparel line, from tees to intimates to underwear, boxers. And it's been a huge success. Stanford's a great client. We love the team down there in Orange County, and it's been really, really fun to see them grow and to see them, I would say, almost like mature in their retail experience and retail presence with this new pack design. So I guess the takeaway from Stance is sustainability. Yeah, that's table stakes, right? What can we now do beyond that to create a much better retail experience just through packaging, the form, the interaction, the materials, the proprietary hook, and then of course all the visual design on label. So a couple more examples I think might be interesting. Jabra is an audio company based out of Copenhagen, Denmark, and we've been working with them for a number of years. And they approached us about 2 years ago because the first project that we did with them, we worked with a great packaging manufacturer that called Unica. And part of that first project was just to create a better out-of-box experience and a better visual design experience. The next project that they brought to us was to totally rethink their packaging line of like 150 SKUs for sustainability. And so that's what we've been working on for the last couple of years, and now launching their completely recyclable packaging. So, ditch the coatings, ditch the varnishes that look pretty, they look great on shelf, like they work to sell, but really don't help us on the sustainability side. In so doing, we also engage with them on a SKU ration exercise. So I want you to think about this. One way of thinking about packaging and sustainability is the materials and the process. Another way is saying, let's create less dye lines. Let's create less packaging products so that not as many packages are being created or recreated for different SKUs. Hopefully that makes sense. And so what we did was we analyzed the entire line, and we created a strategy where there were only really like 3 base packaging units. And all of those were used significantly less material than their predecessors. So not only are we shrinking our material usage, we're shrinking the SKU count of individual packaging form factors for the different SKUs. So take the headphones, for example. All of the over-the-ear headphones could exist in one form factor. All of the earbuds could exist in one form factor. And so we went through the whole line and created inserts that would work for all this, an outer pack that would work for the entire SKU line. And then we began just extending that out. So then we took it even a step further, because they had their kind of like their professional line, their IT line. And this is for corporations where the consumers themselves, like they're using the Jabra headphones for work, but they're not buying them themselves. This is like the IT guy who's buying 500 of these at a time to give to all the employees. And they had 4 SKUs of packaging across their line, and we helped them rationalize it down to 3 SKUs. So there were 3 SKUs of packaging structure that all of their products could fit in. Now think about not only the reduction of material, but the reduction of actual like production of these different boxes. So not only did it save Jabra money, it saved material. And we switched everything over to an actually more sustainable material portfolio for the product line. And so even though, like, I know I show you this page of the existing or the previous, and it's like, yeah, but Beau, like, that's all craft paper box, like that's fully recyclable. Okay, true, but they have 4 different SKUs. Okay, they haven't been rationalized across the portfolio, and different inserts inside. So the material usage here was actually 35% greater than the material usage post SKU strategy. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a big win when you get to the business and to the cost savings that then they're able to put into better materials, better sustainable materials. One more example, when we think about cost reduction or material reduction, we designed this new packaging that is envelopes, right? So they're envelopes that get shipped in containers of I believe 50, right? This is once again for enterprise. And so we created this PET sleeve that the consumer could use, fully recycled material, PET material that the consumer would use to store their headset in. And then instead of wrapping that in a full box like it used to be, right? So if I go to here, like this is the box that it used to get shipped in. And then we would have to ship 50 of those boxes to the company at a time. So now instead of those 50, we have one sleeve and we have a little belly band of recycled material. Then those 50 get put into a master carton that then gets shipped to the corporation. So now we're saving 50 boxes per master container per order. Like that's where the sustainability mindset of how do you reduce the material, reduce the SKUs, and think strategically and creatively of how we can pack and ship this product, get it to the end consumer in a way that's just using significantly less material. Okay, so they've won all sorts of sustainability awards, especially in Europe for this, and likewise have not only saved on production time because there's just less packaging SKUs, they've saved significant money on this new system. So everybody wins, right? But that's as designers, us being willing to understand not only how the consumer needs to experience this, but how does the company need to experience. And once the company can thrive because of design, then they become huge advocates of design. And that's exactly what's happened with Jabra. All right, last one, and then I'd love to jump into some Q&A. So one more poke at this kind of definition of sustainability is the idea of creating sustainable ecosystems. So the brand, what does it stand for? The packaging, what's it made of? Where does it go after we use it? But also the brand and the company itself, how do they create sustainability? Or how do they create sustainable microcultures or even microeconomies? And that's where this next case study is really exciting, because we're able to partner with Chris Sacca and his VC firm, and actually invested in this company. So it's an enlisted venture partner. It's called EcoSafi. And it's a Nairobi/Berkeley, California-based company that is rethinking cooking and how Kenyans cook. So just currently, just so we can kind of level set, currently 3 billion people in the world cook on coal 3 times a day. So they cut a tree down, they dig a hole, they bury the tree, light it on fire and smother it, and it creates coal. Horrible waste of resources. I took a plane over the desert outside of Nairobi to be able to see all of this happening, this coal production happening just on farms. And at the current rate, within 10 years, there will be no more trees in Kenya. Okay. Then you think about the cooking process. What we've done is we've developed a stove that gasifies cold pressed wood pellets. So take recycled wood shavings, compress them into a little wood pellet, and then create a stove that pellet can go into that gasifies the pellet. Instead of creating a flame that's dangerous to cook inside of these homes, these huts, it now creates a heat source that can cook 3 times faster than coal, and is 10 times more effective or more sustainable than coal, in that it takes 1 tree to create one. So let me put it this way. It's like, think about it this way. 1 pound of tree equals 1 pound of coal, whereas 1 pound of tree equals 10 pounds of these pellets. I don't know if that makes sense. It's 10 times more efficient and 10 times more sustainable than coal. These pellets are. And so we partnered with them to create EcoSofty. And of course, the packaging is all recycled and recyclable. And the experience that we created for their shop was really the first branded experience that most of the towns that this is launched in Nairobi have experienced, this idea of a branded space. And so the employees, like, this is where it started, right? And this is what actually launched. And this idea of kind of fueling a new way of life and a new ecosystem and a new kind of microeconomy where EcoSofty creates the pellets, sells the pellets to locals who then sell it to their neighborhoods. And it's actually cheaper than selling coal. So in every way, everybody wins by converting over to this stove, this new heat source, without having to change their culture of cooking or the way that they do it. So really exciting for Ecomoto to launch. Thrilled that we get to be part of it. We love working on these projects with lowercase capital with Chris Saka and his team to really change the way that we produce products and produce brands that are going to resonate with consumers who need it the most. And that is absolutely what EcoSofty does for the Kenyan market. So it's less pollution, it's less danger, it's a less dangerous heat source, and then it takes way less time to cook, thus freeing up time for people to work or to be with their kids, to be with their family. And so it's been amazing to see how, from a sustainability standpoint, of course, the packaging is going to be sustainable, but also how do we create sustainability in microeconomy so that people can thrive by being part of the brands that we're creating. And that's where it kind of all comes full circle to this idea of, like, good design is good for the world. And the fact that we're packaging designers, or we're industrial designers, or brand strategists, or whatever type of designer we are, like, all of those things need to come together as a resource for good. And all those things need to come together as a resource so that we can empower brands to go out and change lives by offering better brand experiences. And that's what gets us super excited.
Hello. Hello there. Beau, are you there?
Yep. Yeah, I'm here. Hey, everybody. All right, should be kicking on now. There we go.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi, that was such a great presentation. Thank you so much for showcasing us, all of your projects, not only Dasher, but everything else that you've all been working on at Enlisted. We have some amazing questions from some people here, so I'm ready to ask away, and hopefully you can answer them for everyone. One question that I had was, how do you find a manufacturer to produce innovative packaging? What are some resources you can share with our attendees about sourcing sustainable manufacturers and materials, and how to get started on all that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because almost every project that we engage on where it has a significant sustainability element to it, like, we go back to the drawing boards, like, who's next? Like, who's pushing the envelope? Who's developing materials and processes that we can resource? A couple of cheat sheets. I think Ian from Guacamole Airplane is one of the attendees. So what he's doing, what the Guacamole team is doing in San Francisco, is phenomenal. Go to their website. They're amazing designers, and they're a fantastic resource. And they've taken an Allbirds approach to to just sharing the resources. And so go check them out. Great site, great work. They also work with Allbirds. And then because we've been in the industry for so long, Enlisted, we're like 15 years old. We've just worked with a lot of different vendors, overseas and domestic, that we resource and that we have partnerships with. And so when we are going through the design process, like we're always looking to push the boundaries for what we can do, but then ultimately bringing partners in very early on in the process so that they can either develop technology or processes or materials early on with us so that we can execute on the design intent. And that's what happened with Allbirds and with Jabra. We work with a packaging manufacturer called Voion, Voion, and they're all over the world. And so when we pitched the initial concept to them, there's quite a bit of R&D that needed to happen in order to have a fully compostable, fully black consumer package to ship.
Yeah. I love that you brought up Guacamole Airplane because and in the chat, Ian has placed a supplier guide. It's a wonderful guide. It's open sourced. And that leads me to a question that us at the Dieline have had a lot of just kind of a question overall in the industry. I know for product, people get very precious about their manufacturers just because formulas are involved and there's a form of proprietariness to the product. But what are your thoughts on open source packaging, especially in the sustainable field? Should everybody just be sharing notes for the better good? Guacamole Airplane is just giving the supply guide and giving it to everybody.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, good.
The answer is absolutely yes. No, it's a rhetorical question, and I know it because the real answer is yes, because all ships rise. We all live here. We all need to help solve these issues. And so when you look at like Allbirds, for example, when Amazon ripped off their sneakers a few years ago, just Google this if you want to get sucked into an awesome vortex for a few minutes. But Amazon rips off their sneakers, and what did Joey do? He released the entire manufacturing process of the Allbirds sneakers and just said, if you're going to rip us off, do it right.
Wow.
Here's the materials. Here's the manufacturers. Go do it right. And I think that's such a great way to approach where it's not just that it's open source, right? I mean, Elon Musk did the same thing with all their patents, where he's like, hey, let's just all remember that what we're trying to do here is get off fossil fuel. Here's all of our patents for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so, yes, I think so. Absolutely. And in fact, oftentimes we'll work with companies who maybe they're not at the stage of funding that they're ready to work with Enlisted. And yet they still need the resources. And so we'll just send them the resources. We'll just make the introductions. Hey, you know what? I don't know what the design's going to be, but if you're going to go down this, in this direction, please reach out to these folks, and then we'll just make an intro.
Right.
All ships rise.
I agree. I think product can be a little tricky. I think there is some specialties and formulas and things that you don't want to out there, but packaging, definitely no. Packaging, yes. I think materials, everybody should be informed. It should be out there. So I love that answer.
Yeah, we push it with product as well. That we launch, this year we'll launch 25 products out of our industrial design team at Enlisted. And we're very open with our product resources as well.
So I guess what makes everything the difference at the end is the design. It's how we all design things is what
correct.
What's the key there.
It's the design, and it's also the technology that goes inside the design or the formulation that goes inside of the design, and that's the proprietary piece.
Good. Yeah. See, there you go. There's the key, guys. Okay. The other question I had is how you convince clients to go sustainable. I think this is the biggest thing in the industry right now is. If people talk about cost, people talk about I can't get this brand to convince them to do this one change, and how is it that you sort of approach some clients to go this is the way you should start thinking, or how does that go about at Enlisted?
So generally we'll receive a brief just like every other agency does, and we'll execute against that brief, and then we'll add that one more concept. Right. And sometimes the brief is focused on sustainability, and I give our clients credit for that. Other times it's not. And so that's where we'll come and we'll present the 2 or 3 concepts forward that they have asked us or they've led us to. And then we'll present that, concept 3, 4, or 5 that pushes the boundaries in sustainability. And then oftentimes we'll have already reached out to our vendor partners to get some pricing, general pricing, so that they can understand the price of what that's going to cost to go sustainable. But then, like I talked about in the Jobber case study, there's other ways to approach price, where sure, your material BOM costs may go up, but your overall investment in shipping these products may go down because we designed a sustainable sleeve or pouch that these products could go in that now fit 50 to a master pack, and you just saved a ton of money by not shipping 50 individual boxes. And so we try to, and especially as entrepreneurs ourselves at Enlisted, like we try to take more of this entrepreneurial mindset of, okay, if this were my business, here's how I would do this so that I can rationalize the cost of it, or even save on costs and yet still do good.
Right. That's good. It's just presenting the sustainable concept and really selling that idea.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then understanding the business behind that.
Right. Perfect. So we have some other questions here. Everybody gave so many flowers to you guys. Great design, home composted, or does it need to go into special facility?
Yeah. That's a really good question. So the difference between a biodegradable package and a compostable package is that biodegradable can go into the earth and it's fine. A compostable package goes into the earth and it adds something to the earth. And so because this is made out of bagasse or sugarcane, it actually adds nutrients to the ground, to the earth when it's composted. Now, it can be composted in an industrial facility. It can also be composted at home. The difference isn't so much the difference is how long will it take. So in an industrial composting facility, it'll be a lot quicker, whereas at home, it'll take longer. So at home, let's say that it takes, 90 days, 120 days, whereas an industrial facility there's kind of a couple of different methods that they use, using air and fans and other things to be able to compost quicker.
Oh, interesting. Very cool. Someone had a question about the sketches that you showed on your presentation for Dasher, the forms and shapes, and they wanted to know about the elimination and selection process before arriving at the final form and structure. Did the clients also go through analyzing initial form sketches? How was that process with the client?
So Allbirds, from a design standpoint, put a lot of trust in us. Like, they've been watching us for a bit. And we kind of find that with new clients when they reach out and they're like, we've been watching you. I'm like, all right, cool. So Allbirds really approached it as they wanted to collaborate with us somewhat, but they really wanted us to create. And so they were pretty hands off on the creative process, especially in the overall form factor. Of course, they approved it, but those decisions were mostly made in the studio. Also, keep in mind with Allbirds is not a large company. And this was not a massive budget, and this was a very quick timeline. Our other clients, like with Nestle, or with Clorox, or with P&G, like larger CPG clients, will go through the whole process of quantitative and qualitative studies and research and validation of the concepts. We did not do that with Allbirds. Allbirds was so quick, and we had so much stewardship over the design of it that we were able to select that in-house at Enlisted.
Oh, great. Someone had a question about how do you have an audit or discovery process for fully understanding and evaluating the client's existing packaging systems? Seems like a very loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, if I understand the question right, like, do we have a process to audit? And the answer is yes. So part of our discovery and exploration phase 1 of every project that we take on, is this discovery. And so we look at the entire SKU count, the entire portfolio, and even not just the actual SKU itself, but the packaging and the master pack and the way that that's delivered to the to the 3PL or whatever, or direct to consumer, and so that we're able to strategize what we could do if we move some of the kind of logistics of shipping the product around. And then we look at the SKUs across the board from a visual standpoint of like that first part was the structural. The second part is the visual, where we look at the SKU differentiation. Are we using color? Are we using content and copy? Like, how are we differentiating these SKUs? And then once we've digested or kind of, strategized what, or looked at what their current strategy is, then we strategize what it should be so that it's more shoppable on shelf, or so that it's more shippable to a home.
Great. That's a great answer. Someone has a question about, we've been pressed to consider methane release for compostability. Is that factored in the equation balance?
Yeah, so LCA is super important in the whole process. We did not do a deep LCA for the Allbirds program for job ruts, much deeper, and for some of our larger companies, our larger clients, it is much deeper. For this, it wasn't the methane release. We don't know what that is. I think to answer part of this question, and then I'm kind of glancing at some of the other questions on here, the question around, hey, I ordered the Dashers and I didn't get your packaging. One thing to keep in mind is that this packaging in particular was the Dasher launch VIP packaging. They made 1,000 units of this packaging that we designed for launch. And so it went to the celebrities, it went to it went to the folks who were going to post about it and get really excited about it. And then the Allbirds staff, they all got the special VIP packaging. So because there was only 1,000 of these made, we didn't go through the full testing, nor do we know the exact methane release data.
Okay, perfect. That's a good. So someone's asking what's next for Enlisted, and I think we'll end it there. And what I'm going to do too, if you're okay with it, Beau, is I'm going to add your Instagram here, and people can DM if they have more questions. They can get into your Instagram message. So I'm going to put it here. But what's next for Enlisted? You guys have so much exciting things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and we continue to grow at just a really fast clip. And what's exciting about this is that as a design agency, we're continuing to take on clients who are looking to co-create next level shit with us. And those clients are really big corporations, right? And some of them are startups. We're working with an electric boat company called Arc Boats that broke off of Tesla and SpaceX. We're designing the first electric boat. We're also designing autonomous vehicles. We're designing natural and organic CPG, food companies. And so there's a lot that we're working with on the design agency side, the Enlisted side. Then on the pattern side, we just raised $225 million at a $2 billion valuation, and just became a double unicorn, which is going to enable us to what we've done is we've created a venture side of Pattern and Enlisted, and that's called Village Brands. So villagebrands.com. We just branded it and launched the site a couple of weeks ago. So now what we're doing is we're acquiring brands, acquiring companies, and bringing them into Enlisted, rebranding, redesigning the packaging, and relaunching onto the Pattern e-commerce platform. And so, while yes, we have our fingers in so many different industries as a design agency, Enlisted the design agency, we're now also Enlisted the incubator, Enlisted the venture fund, Enlisted Pattern Village ecosystem in which we're able to launch and accelerate our own brands and companies, which is very exciting for us.
That's great. Well, that's really exciting. I put villagebrands.com. Love the branding. I just looked at the website very quickly, but encourage everyone to take a look at it. I also included, like I mentioned, your Instagram, so people can direct message Beau and the team. And if you didn't get your question answered, I think they'll be more than happy to direct message with all of you. Beau, I want to thank you so much for doing this. Is showcasing your work, really talking about sustainability and pushing this narrative that we're so passionate about, and you are as well. And I really loved this presentation so much. So thank you for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us on. Thanks for all you're doing with Decode. this podcast to take designers and be like, okay, give us the nitty gritty, like tell us the real story, is just so refreshing as a designer. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for everyone attending. We're going to have this on demand. So if you missed like a portion of it or you need to go back and review it, we'll have it on demand on the site. So please take a look in like about an hour or so. And Beau, thank you again. Everyone have a wonderful rest of the week.
So,
really
Jessica,
appreciate
Andrew,
it.
thank you so much. See ya.
Thank you.